Hi, students. Well, here we are on a snow day, and I can't let a day go by without doing a little bit with you. I'll promise to make this as short and sweet as I can. We're really only going to go through one slide, but it's a really important slide to understand what we talked about on Thursday. So remember, as we start talking about the New Deal, and Roosevelt kind of implements this really New Deal of legislation, progressive legislation, after the stock market crash and the beginning of the Great Depression. It seemed like in his first 100 days, like he could get anything passed that he wanted, right? Like in 1933, I think in those first 100 days there was 15 pieces of major legislation that was able to be signed into law. That was a lot. I mean, that is a lot of government working and policy being put into play. What I do want you to realize is not everybody felt so willing to allow President Roosevelt to kind of decide that the best direction for the country was whatever he thought. So there's a lot of pushback and some opposition to the Roosevelt Coalition, sometimes it's called that. Radical union and populist movements pushed Roosevelt to more extensive efforts to change the American economic system, while conservatives in Congress and the Supreme Court sought to limit the New Deal's scope. So first, we should probably just mention about Huey Long's Share Our Wealth program. Huey Long was a senator from Louisiana. He was very much a socialist. He believed this Share Our Wealth program, that you should tax at, now remember, we have the 16th Amendment passed that says, the Congress has graduated, Congress can pass a graduated income tax, and it's based basically on your income. Huey Long in the Share Our Wealth program said that any income over $1 million. Now, $1 million in 1933 would have been a lot of money, but any income over $1 million should be taxed at 100%. Like, that's a lot. That is a very, very, I mean, we're probably talking past a socialist understanding here. That's almost to a communist understanding. 100%. And actually, that you should cap personal income at, I think he said 15 million or something like that. Like, you can't make any more than this amount of money, which is very much goes against kind of this capitalistic understanding and work hard ethic that would have been very much in the rise of that industrial age, robber barons, things like that. So there were a lot of people who were very much opposed to Huey Long and his Share Our Wealth program. But people like Roosevelt would have been on board, not to those extensive measures, but like, we have to help those who can't help themselves. And it is our duty, again, kind of think of Andrew Carnegie, it is our duty to help those who can't, who are in these times of crises. Father Conklin, he's a radio priest. He comes on the radio, and he, think back of like the fire and brimstone teaching, and like that Puritan idea. Father Conklin is very much in FDR's corner. Father Conklin is a Catholic priest. He's this Catholic radio priest, but he is quite close with FDR. Well, FDR, he thought he was going to get a cabinet position in FDR's second term when FDR runs in 1936. And things kind of fall apart. He doesn't, and so he goes on the radio and he just rails against FDR. But even before that, part of the reason why FDR didn't seat him in his cabinet was because he was coming on the radio and really talking horrible things, especially against Jews. Now, keep in mind, 2 decades before this, there is still a lot of nativist feelings against Catholics and Jews. A lot of those, people who had come in immigrated from Southern and Eastern Europe are Catholic or Jewish, and there is a lot of pushback against those people. But now Father Conklin is very much an anti-Semite, and he's speaking out against Jews on this radio program. It's probably the one thing that pushes FDR away from him the most. He doesn't get a cabinet position like he had hoped, and now he really is against FDR, and he's using that platform on the radio to really show his dislike for FDR. But up until this time, pretty much everybody loved FDR. Like, FDR could kind of do no wrong. Well, we have to talk about Schechter Poultry versus the United States. So this is a piece of legislation that was passed, you know, the NIRA. You remember the NIRA, the National Industrial Recovery Act. It basically regulated wages. It set production and prices for production. There was a minimum wage. It talked about working conditions. So it was a progressive measure for employment, and especially working conditions. Well, it got overturned. The NIRA got overturned. In this case, that came all the way up against the Supreme Court, Schechter Poultry versus the United States. It's the first time that there has been any real opposition, especially in the whole system of checks and balances, against the New Deal programs. And FDR is he's shocked, actually. He's very taken aback. Another one comes the next year in U.S. versus Butler. That's 1936. That overturned the Agricultural Adjustment Act, and that was, for farm purposes and for farming, the industry of agriculture, and that was overturned the AAA. This one was probably even more of a shock to FDR, because one of his you remember when we talked about reform, relief, and recovery? When we talk about like the recovery, it was really in the farm sector. It was a little bit in the housing and rebuilding projects, but it was really in the farm sector. And so when the AAA got overturned and was deemed unconstitutional by the courts, FDR is shocked. Like, this is a big blow to his administration. And so finally we get to FDR's failed Supreme Court packing plan. So I'd like you to watch this. I'm not going to go through and watch it with you, but what I want you to really realize is that when FDR started feeling the pushback from his New Deal legislation, he came up with a plan to seat more justices. Remember, we have this checks and balances, right, between the three branches of government. Well, FDR gets to name new justices. Well, we're coming to a period of time where justices are going to be retiring, and FDR comes up with a brilliant way, which he thinks he can keep other pieces of his New Deal legislation from being overturned and continue to add more extensive efforts to change the economic system if he can seat judges. Remember, that's one of the benefits of the checks and balances, if he can seat judges who are very in line with his socialist kind of ideals. So it's Hip Hughes. I'd like you to watch this video here. I'll even kind of pull up the very beginning so you can see, what it looks like and what it is. But make sure you do watch it, because this is a big, big piece of opposition to the courts. Cabin, so you're going to watch that for me, and I'll see you on Monday. There will be a quiz. This information from today will not be on the quiz, but information on up till Thursday is on the quiz that we were planning on taking today. So I'll talk to you later. Until next time, bye.